Call the meeting to order and recording of members present and absent.
Hanson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Slater.
Here.
McDermott. Parker.
Open meeting compliance statement read.
I, the undersigned clerk of the Board of Education of the Alva Independent School District, number 1 of Woods County, Oklahoma, certify that prior to December 15th of the last calendar year, the date, time, and place of this regular meeting was filed in the office of the County Clerk of Woods County, Oklahoma. I also certify that at least 24 hours prior to this meeting, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, notice of the date, time, place, and agenda of this meeting was posted in prominent public view at the office of the superintendent.
Thank you. We're going to go a little bit out of order to accommodate some schedules. We're going to jump to 6.1, discussion with possible board action to accept the audit report from the firm Chaz W. Carroll, PA, concerning the 21-22 audit.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Jay. Jay's here today to give us our audit report for uniform guidance. I'll turn it over to Jay.
Okay. If you'll turn to page 4. We have 3 opinion letters this year because your uniform guidance, you spent over $750,000 for federal funds. It's a qualified opinion for the state of Oklahoma because we use the regulatory basis. On a modified cash basis, we record the revenues when they're collected and the expenditures when they're encumbered. It's an adverse for the U.S. for the federal because we don't show generally accepted accounting principles. They want us to accrue everything and record expenditures as we accrue them. So, moving on to that, we'll go over the second page. We are hired to give an opinion on the financial statements taken as a whole. The management is responsible for the financial statements that they give us. We'll turn over to Exhibit A, which is your balance sheet. Shows your assets, your cash and cash equivalents for each fund, for the general fund, special revenue, debt service, trust and agency, which is your activity fund, and your gift fund. You don't have any bonds and no long-term debt. We show the warrants payable down below and the liabilities and funds balance and reserves. And then down below we show the fund balances. We have unassigned in the general fund of $5,587,000. We have restricted for the building fund $3,132,000 and child nutrition $396,000. We have $10,432 in the debt service, and that's just being accrued from ad valorem taxes, which is a small amount. It's probably been there for several years. Trust and agency, we have $70,328 in the gift fund. The next page is Exhibit B. We show the revenues collected for local sources, intermediate sources, state funds, and federal funds. We list all those by the general fund, special revenue, which is your child nutrition and your building fund. Debt service, trust and agency is just the gift fund. We don't show the activity fund because those funds don't belong to the district. Those belong to each one of the programs, FFA, band, whatever. Go down below, we show operational expenses for instruction, support services, facilities, other outlays in each fund. Down below we have adjustments for prior year encumbrances. These are lapse appropriations from last year, and we'll bring those back into the fund. Down below we had a transfer. It's a transfer of $2,747 from the activity fund for insurance reimbursements, and there's a transfer from the general fund to the gift fund. I believe that was recorded in the wrong account, so we transferred that. We had an increase in the general fund of $269,000, in the special revenue $597,000, and $608 in the debt service and $51,000 in the gift fund. And we'll show a breakdown of the special revenue fund for Exhibit A and Exhibit B later on, back here in the schedules. The next page is just a budget to actual for the income statement for the general fund, special revenue fund, and the debt service fund. I believe there was, we didn't have any supplemental appropriations last year. I'm doing two of them tonight, and at 5 o'clock this morning, I was looking at both of them, and now I'm getting a little confused. Page 7 through 15. Here's your notes to the financial statement. If you've never read them, you need to read them. It tells you a lot about your school district, your fund accounting, the types of funds you have, basis of accounting and presentation. You don't have any long-term debt, which is good. No operating leases. We turn back over to page 15. Tells about your retirement system. In the past 3 years, for 22, 21, and 20, you've contributed $995,000, $954,000, and $1,048,000 on behalf of your employees. Next page is Schedule A1. This is a breakdown of the Exhibit A for the special revenue for building fund and child nutrition. Shows you had $3,225,000 in the building fund and $482,000 in the child nutrition. We had warrants payable and reserved for encumbrances. Next page is A2. Shows your activity fund. This is a breakdown again for the activity fund and gift fund. And we'll go through the activity fund over on the next few pages in Schedule D. You've got $70,328 in the gift fund. The next page is Schedule B1. Shows a breakdown for the income statement for Exhibit B back in the front page for the building fund and the child nutrition fund. And we had an increase in the building fund of $455,614 and $141,984 in the child nutrition. And a lot of that has to do, over the past few years, the state has paid you more money than you've spent because you didn't have to charge for meals over the past few years, which will change and we'll have to spend that and that'll go away. Next page is Schedule C1. This is a budget to actual for your Exhibit C. Just shows the budget to actual for each fund individually. Next page is Schedule D. These show a breakdown of all your programs that you have in the activity fund. There's a lot of money goes through here. It's all cash. So this is our highest risk. You have to get everybody to receipt the funds, give it to the activity fund custodian, and they have to deposit that on a daily basis. And we have problems getting them to receipt it and turn it in on a timely basis. We didn't this year, but that's one of our big problems everywhere we go. And once you train them, you've got to retrain them each year. Then they've got to have a PO before they can go out and purchase something. And the board approves what those funds can be spent on. So there's a lot of things to learn, and there's a lot of people to keep track of, and it's a big job. And it did really good this year because we didn't have anything that we found. The next page is reconciliation of your bank statement. Just shows that we balance to the bank, which is good. Next page is your CFA, your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. We show we received $1,664,000. We spent $1,480,000. We've got about, there's 58,000 in one group and 64 in another that we received in 23 for last year. So we've received all that by now. If you go down below, there's 145,000. We talked about that $141,000 that we show increase in the Child Nutrition Fund. There's 145,000 to be spent. That were federal funds that we've received. Page 18. This is the second letter. This is where we look at everything else. We look at your board minutes. We look at your salaries and wages. We look at your contracts. Look at your teacher's retirement, POs, the activity fund. We look at everything else, and everything turned out really good this year. So they did a good job. The third letter is the letter for the federal program. It's an adverse for the federal program because we don't show the accrued, we don't do it generally accepted accounting principles. If you'll turn to the last page where you wanted me to start. It's an adverse opinion because we don't do generally accepted accounting principles. It's qualified due to the omission of general fixed asset group. There's no material weaknesses, no significant deficiency, no non-material compliance of the financial statements, and it's an unqualified opinion for the major programs. We looked at your Title I, your COVID, all your COVID funds. If we look at one COVID item, we have to look at all. It's not a cluster, but by federal requirements, you have to look at all those federal funds. And there was no findings. The other thing, if you'll turn back to the CFOG, there's one other thing that's required by the state or by the federal government. If you look out to the left, anything that says COVID-19, that's a federal requirement that has to say that out there. So they want to look and see all those COVID funds. Is there any questions? I went through it pretty fast. If not, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
Yep.
And thank you, Miss Owen, Miss Nettles, Mrs. Durkin, all of our staff, our principals, our activity sponsors. Tremendous amount of work that goes into the day-to-day operation of the school, and without those critical people and our administrators and our teachers and sponsors following our protocols and procedures, we're not able to have a good audit like we just had. So thank you to all of them. If there are no questions, I would recommend approval of our 21-22 audit.
So moved.
Second.
Slater,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
We'll move back to item number 3, the consent agenda.
Yeah.
All the following items which concern reports and items of routine nature normally approved by one board vote, unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and approval of the following. 3.1, addition of new business to the agenda.
There are no new items.
3.2, the minutes of the December 5th, 2022 regular meeting. 3.3, approval of the finance report. 3.4, approval of the activity fund report. 3.5, approval of the activity fund fundraisers. 3.6, approval of activity fund inter-account transfers. 3.7, approval of child nutrition report. And 3.8, declare the following items as surplus.
Okay, we'll go back up to agenda item 3.2, our minutes from the December 5th, 2022 meeting. Not seeing any errors with those minutes. Agenda item 3.3 provided our monthly investment and finance report. Take a moment to open those investments and then the finance report. You can see on our chargeables and comparables that we continue to be up in our areas, especially gross production, 318,000 over what we collected year to date. We continue to lag behind in motor vehicle, which we anticipated and expected. REA tax, school land earnings, and our county war mill are all up to this point. I provided those also graphically for you to look at on the next page, and then also on the final page, you can see those expenses in the numbers. On that attachment, we've had a revenue increase compared to FY23 to FY22 of $446,691.35, and we've spent $199,294 more. So we're doing very well with our revenue and expenditures. A lot of credit goes to our building administrators as they go through purchase orders and vet all those before we bring those down. Our activity fund report. You have our activity fund year to date and then activity fund for the month of December. There really hasn't been many changes to our activity fund. We will bring some information to you regarding tournament expenditures in the coming month and a breakdown of how the recent basketball tournament. Thank you to Ms. Durkee. As I mentioned earlier, with our activity funds on the audit, does an outstanding job as our activity encumbrance clerk, and so all of our accounts are in good standing. Agenda item 3.5, we have no fundraisers this month. Agenda item 3.6, we don't have an inter-account transfer this month. We will have one next month. It will be for some cheerleader purchases of homecoming shirts, which will be happening this week. Agenda item 3.7, our child nutrition report. You will open that attachment. You can see our comparison year to month to month over the past 3 years. You can see we are down a little bit in our serving numbers, which is to be expected. As Jay mentioned, not all meals are free, and so we are down somewhat in those numbers. But when you really go back and look at the month of November and to a certain extent, even in September, we were up in those months. Continue to do well with our serving menu. I mentioned earlier at the middle school and the high school, they have an order ahead to give those students another option, and that's been very popular for our young people. And then agenda item 3.8, items of surplus. There are no items to surplus this month. If there are no questions on the consent agenda, I would recommend its approval.
I make a motion to approve items 3.1 to 3.8 as presented.
Second.
Slater,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Item 4, vote to approve purchase order encumbrances for the following funds for fiscal year '23. 4.1, the general fund number 11 as referenced. 4.2, building fund number 21 as referenced. And 4.3, child nutrition fund number 22 as referenced.
Okay, we'll go back to agenda item 4.1 and begin with our general fund purchase orders for the month. You'll open up the top attachment. A few of those go through here real quickly. Purchase order number 350 with Kellogg and Sovereign. That is our cost of services for E-rate. We received an additional money through our federal E-rate funding. And So that is our cost of services for Kellogg and Sovereign as they help file all that paperwork and ensure compliance. Purchase order number 358, open purchase order for travel expenses for Mr. Nation. Purchase order number 359, access elevator. That is to work on our lift at the front office. They are also going to be diagnosing and hopefully repairing our lift in the auditorium. And so Mr. Thomas has done a good job working with them to ensure those projects get completed. If you look at the second attachment, general fund payroll, those are substitute payments for our substitute teachers. Agenda item 4.2, our building fund. If you will open up that attachment. A couple of those purchase orders for the building fund. Purchase order number 45, Jenkins and Price, custodial supplies throughout the district. Purchase orders number 43, 44, and 47, Top Choice Mechanical. That's all together, those purchase orders total $2,050. Those are some maintenance issues we've had with the boiler. And again, Mr. Thomas has worked with Top Choice to get those issues ironed out. Purchase order number 46 and 49, those are both purchase orders of Vendetti Plumbing. They total $1,305, and those are to fix some plumbing issues we had over the holiday break, the high school locker room in the gym. So appreciate Mr. Thomas again. He had a busy holiday break getting those issues fixed. Our final fund, the Child Nutrition Fund, we had one purchase order out of that fund for the month. Purchase order number 22 for $95, and that was some repairs to cafeteria switch at the high school. Any questions regarding any of the purchase orders from our general fund, building fund, or child nutrition fund? If there are none, I would recommend their approval.
We have a motion?
Move to approve items 4.1, 4.2, 4.3.
Second.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Item number 5, the superintendent's report.
Okay, we have two resignations this month. You can see both of those attachments, Alita Nolan and Starlet James. And so we wish them the best. They have some other opportunities for them. We'll move on to agenda item 5.2, my communication. On Wednesday, I will be attending a program in Cherokee put on by the Alfalfa Grant and Woods County assessors to talk about the tax protest that we have been facing in all of our districts and counties. And so that will be an informational meeting that they'll be able to provide some ideas or some things that we need to be aware of, and I can bring those back to the board next month after that meeting on Wednesday. We've also, there's been a hold on state report cards. I believe I mentioned last month that we would be able to share some of those state report cards with the board. They have put that on hold as they continue to review the data. And so whenever we get that information, we will be sure to share that with the board. Lastly, for myself, this month is School Board Recognition Month. Just want to thank you all as a board for your service to our community and to our students and to our staff. It's been a really volatile year and a half, and it seems like it continues to be, and this board is led with class and grace throughout, continuing to provide our students and our staff with the best education possible. And so present these certificates to you, and that is a small price to pay for the time and effort that you spend, but we just want to say thank you. We appreciate your leadership and your care for our students. So with that said, I want to turn it over to, thank you, Mrs. King. Mrs. Lovelace is going to provide a short report tonight on special education compliance. As we all know, Mrs. Lovelace does an outstanding job, and I give her a hard time, but anytime she presents, you know that you will know after she presents that our district is well-informed and well taken care of in our special education department, and so really appreciate her, and so we'll turn it over to Ms. Lovelace.
So start my time. So I'm going to try to do 7 minutes. We'll see. In front of you, you have 3 pieces of paper. One of them says district data profile. The other one, you don't have 3. The other one is continuum of alternative placements for services. And then the last one is the district's special ed risk score. So just preliminarily, the way we get graded is through 2 things. We get our district data profile, and in combination with our risk score, those are then calculated to determine if we meet requirements, and we met requirements, but I wanted to share some of our positives and then some of our growth areas. So just real quickly, if you'll notice on the district data profile, you've got a district score, that's our score. State target is what we need to be at, and then meets target is yes or no, whether or not we met that target. Okay, so first, did we graduate everybody in that cohort? And we did, so yay, that's 100%. So yay yes, right? And then our dropout, we didn't have any dropouts, and this is just looking at our students who receive special education services population. So when a cohort comes into the high school, they're 9th graders, and we follow them for 4 years. And so when they're seniors, we take their data. And so during that time, or during last year, we didn't have any dropouts, so that's very good. Then we look at indicator 3, A through D, and this is for participation. And also if our students who are receiving special education services are proficient on the OSTP. So participation, we rock, right? Because if you're gone, we'll find you and we will test you. So I'm just saying, right? With tenacity, we're going to make sure we have 100% of our students, if at all possible, participate in our assessments. This is good news, y'all. This next page, we look at, Mr. Feely looks at all of our data with all of our students, but in that are my kids who are taking that test too. And so we've met the state requirements on many of them, which will help our big piece of that data, which is all of us, okay? So for 4th grade reading proficiency, we met it. So that means that 14% of students who receive special education services made proficient or above in reading in 4th grade. So yay that, right? And so our report card is just based on 4th, 8th, and 11th. So we also looked at that 8th grade. And we actually didn't have anybody who received special education services in the 8th grade meet proficiency, okay? In the 11th grade, we did. We had 60%. So this is good news because some of the things that we are implementing is working. And when they work with my kids, right, it will work with more kids, okay? So then let's go on, and you guys can review that, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that because we've got some good stuff going on. Let's look at significant discrepancy, and so this is 4A through B is risk ratio for all students with disability. If we're suspending or expelling more students who have disability than we are students who are typical, and we're not. We're doing a really good job. So moving on. Okay, this is my favorite because we're so good at it. So this is indicator 5. This is our least restrictive environment, and if you'll just go ahead and pull out that second piece of paper right here, if you'll notice, the state target is 71.5%, and we're at 95%. So that means 95% of our students receive their services at least 85% in the regular ed curriculum, okay? So I wanted to tell you kind of what we did with this least restrictive environment and why we nail it so well every year. This is least restrictive environment. Our goal in special education is to provide supports well enough that they can function in the regular ed classroom, okay? So it's all based upon the individual needs of the student, okay? So this is just that center paragraph. When using this continuum to determine where services and supports will be provided, the IEP team should first make an effort to place and maintain the student in the general ed setting. So when we're thinking about those placements, we start over here and say, okay, can they function in the regular ed curriculum? Well, if they can't, what types of supports do we need to put in place so they can be successful? So that's what we do. On every time we have an IEP meeting, we look at this continuum to see where our students would be best placed. But then also, I do want you to realize that that placement is fluid. So sometimes they're functioning well, and then sometimes they're not. Okay, so we have to adjust those services accordingly. And just for light reading, when you get home, I would read it. I don't know. Maybe Mr. Feely will too. This is just an example of a case study of how we actually place our students. And it's not just one person making that decision, it's a team. Okay, so teams meet across the district. Well, we had an IEP marathon, and she said, don't do that anymore. So every day almost. And within those teams, we make these really critical decisions to be able to serve our students well. So if you'll notice, we're at 95%. Yay! Early childhood environments, this is students that come to us 3 and 4-year-olds, not in our pre-K program, but we also have a program for 3 and 4-year-olds. And we do not meet this consistently every year because the services they receive are in the special ed setting, because we don't have a 3-year-old general ed setting. Now, our numbers were better when we collaborated with Head Start more, but Head Start hasn't been consistent enough for us to serve them at their place, and so that's why our numbers have dropped. Outcomes, if you'll notice, we're growing them in A1, B1, and C1. The others are students who would be in the regular ed curriculum. That's why we got a 0, because none of the students that we served in our 3-year-old program has the regular ed curriculum, okay? It's all special education. All right, parent involvement, we're approaching, and I loved when I was going over this with Mr. Feely, I love that he said this is low-hanging fruit. We should meet this every year. We should meet this every year. This is a parent survey that parents actually complete, and we're just approaching. So that would be a growth area. Disproportionality, we have to look at when we identify students for special education services, if we're over-identifying in a particular race, or if we're over-identifying in a particular disability, and we're not, okay? Child find, we're approaching, and I'll get to child find in a minute. Early childhood transition, those are those students who come to us from Sooner Start, and we have a certain amount of time that we have to put in place an IEP, and we did that with no trouble. Secondary, we're rocking it in secondary. And then post-school outcomes, I just want to draw your attention to, there were only 2 students who completed a survey. This is out of our control. The state surveys our kids after they get out of school to see if, and so we don't have any control over those surveys being completed. I feel like if we had more that we would do better, but we only had 2. Resolution services and mediation, we don't have that. I feel like we do a really good job communicating with our parents, and so we haven't had that thus far, Mr. Argo. So yay that. And then, of course, timeliness. And so then the next thing that the state looks at is our risk score. And we are at a very low risk. The highest number we received was years since prior on-site monitoring, and we have no control over that either. They decide when they come. But at any point, our risk score was a 2, and that's very low, okay? So then they combined it all together, and if you'll change after the yellow, you will see how they compute those scores. And if you'll go to the very last page before the next yellow, you'll notice that we met requirements. There were 2 little things that was pulled out of the data that they wanted us to work on. And one of them being our child find procedures. We have 45 school days from date of consent to date of meets, and we went 46 days on 1 student. So we have to review and make sure that we're doing a good job in that situation. So we've got to complete what they call a toolkit. That's actually due the 13th. The other recommendation that we look at would be students. We have an alternative assessment for our students who have significant needs, and we are only supposed to have 1% take that assessment, and our number was greater than that. And so we also had to do a toolkit on that as well. And if you'll go to the very back page, I did receive this, and I sent it to Mr. Argo, that our toolkit had been accepted, that we had identified, some of the things, some of the strategies we need to do to make sure that we're not putting too many students in that alternative assessment domain. So do you guys have any questions for me?
Two very good reports tonight.
Okay. You're very welcome.
Great job, too.
Was it 7? Maybe 8.
Yeah,
It was 10. Okay, it was 10.
yeah, okay. It was good, so we won't worry about numbers. We won't worry about one. Thank you, very good.
Is that all you have?
That's all I have.
Item 6.2, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the bid packages and quotes as recommended by Kyler Construction Group Incorporated, construction manager for the Alva High School cafeteria project.
Okay, so we've got Kyler Construction here tonight. I'll let Randy introduce himself, and you can see the attachment there with the recommendation report. And so if you want to open that attachment, and Randy, if you'd like to go over anything with the group.
Now, they're opening this report on the cafeteria, correct? That's what- Okay. Well, we're recommending that you approve the bottom line, the GMP, but first, we're recommending that you approve the bid packages 6A, 9B, and 9C, which is rough carpentry, tiling and floor covering, painting. The quotes recommended for approval is millwork and countertop, and there was a little bit of confusion around that. The only millwork in the base bid is at the serving line. The rest of the millwork around is in the alternate that I'll get to in a little bit. But this is putting in a quartz top, I believe.
I think it's solid surface.
Yeah, solid surface top at the serving line. Okay. Doors and hardware, that's pretty well self-explanatory. Fire extinguishers. Electrical, we did not get a bid. When bids are under $50,000. We don't have to re-advertise and rebid that item. And I believe Northwest Electric is a local electrical contractor that we finally got to bid it. The one that's doing our HVAC job, I couldn't get him to bid it because several reasons. This cafeteria project is a summer project. It's prevailing wage. It's a long ways away from anybody. So I struggled some around bids. I'm not going to tell you that I didn't, but I don't know that I could, do any better under the circumstances. And plus, it's a prevailing wage job, and a lot of people just don't want to do that. They don't want to comply with that. So we had a quote on and the only plumbing in the project is the drinking fountain, and we had a plumber that just gave us a quote on that. We're going to get $100 numbers from a local plumber. We feel like that number may go down some. The next item is 9A on the gyp board and the acoustical ceilings. We only had one bid. We used that number, but it was very obvious to us with his alternate at the price it was. It should have actually been a deduct, and it was a $80-some thousand ad. So what I did was I did a drywall takeoff. I used to have a drywall company, and I'm comfortable with this number. We're wanting to reject this number and advertise it and rebid it. We have plenty of time to do that because we wasn't comfortable with what he understood about the bid and the process. So that's the one that we're on the next item that I think we're wanting you to reject is the drywall number. But then whenever we're going down, we're giving you the total GMP here on the bottom line with the alternate. Now the alternate, if you look at the second page of that report.
So I'll tell you what, before we move on to that, Randy, let's because we've got that on the next agenda item.
Okay.
So let's look at this agenda item first, and then we can open up that attachment on our next agenda items. Are there any questions regarding the recommendations made by Kyler Construction? And if there are none, I would recommend approval of the bid packages and quotes as recommended by Kyler.
So we said it's a summer project. It will be completed before school starts in August.
Be completed in August. Yes.
Before school starts.
Well, I don't feel like we've really got any tough delivery items.
Right.
In this project, like HVAC units and some items, so I feel somewhat comfortable with that. But in today's environment, do y'all ever order anything anywhere?
Yes.
I mean, how's it working for you? I mean, and we order a lot of stuff, so it's been very, very tough for us in the construction business with all the different materials. We always seem to have something that jumps up and hurts our schedule. But I feel relatively comfortable. These are pretty plain Jane items in this that we can get that done in the summer.
What happens if the plumbing and the gypsum board and acoustical ceilings is higher than your 2,500 and your 79,000? You've got an estimate written there. What happens if it goes higher? We're going to eat that?
If you approve the GMP as we presented it tonight, we'll do the drywall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if I can't get somebody to bid it, I can do it for that number or less.
We think this is about 25%.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
I know, and it's hard to get people to come
Right.
3 hours from the.
Well, we don't understand why the sub that we have on the HVAC project is not bidding the cafeteria project.
Yeah.
They're going to be here in the summer anyway. Why not do both?
It's not
And the
even.
electrician
So
was the same
we're going
way.
to lean on them. We could have just picked a bad
Sure.
day for them
It could have.
to bid. So
Okay, that answered my question, and I think you explained that, but I was too busy looking at other numbers, so thank you.
And the
very much.
plumbing, we just need a formal quote.
Sure.
And we think we can get somebody local
Okay,
to do
very
that
good. I hope
for
so.
less than 2,500.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And if we do, we'll pass the savings back to you.
Okay. Thank you, that was the only question I had.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes. Item 6.3, discussion with possible board action to reject and rebid package 9A as recommended by Kyler Construction Group Incorporated, construction manager for the Alva High School cafeteria project.
And so Randy just mentioned this. We're going to vote to reject that because they believe they can do that for that price, if not lower. So
We have to reject that and have to advertise it for 21 days and rebid it.
Yes.
Any-
Is that a motion?
Yes.
we need to make the motion with the, to reject bid package 9A.
I'll make a motion that we reject package 9A
And rebid it.
and rebid it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Slater,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Item 6.4, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the guaranteed maximum price for the Alva High School cafeteria project, including alternate number 1.
Okay, so Randy, I'm going to,
Well, that's the same sheet that the bid packages was on.
Yeah, on page 2 there that you're looking at is a breakdown of the costs. There's 3 significant pieces to that. The base bid, you're getting a new ceiling. You're getting new ceiling tiles. But in the alternate, we're adding new light fixtures. So that's what the Northwest Electric price is. The painting, there's a fur down and there's some accent painting on the walls.
And the rest of it is millwork.
In the alternate, and the rest of it is countertops.
with the charging stations, that was what,
Yeah.
we took that back and met with students. And that was one of the things they were pretty passionate about was charging stations. So,
And there's quite a few of those cabinets.
yeah.
Do we have the power to do that? Is power an issue at all with this project?
It's low voltage, yeah, you shouldn't have an issue with power.
You have a motion.
I have a question with the electric. What type of electric are we going back with for the alternate? Is that an LED concept or?
LED lay-in light fixtures,
I think they're 2 by 2.
I believe that's right.
Yeah, I think they're 2 by 2
Yeah.
is what they are. You know, but you don't want to put a new ceiling in there and hang those old light fixtures down. I'm just telling you, you'll walk in there, you won't be happy at all. And, you know, then you'll be relamping and trying. I highly recommend that you go ahead and put new light fixtures in a new ceiling. I've tried that several times and it just looks terrible. It's like building a new house and moving old furniture in, it never looks good.
And just to be clear, aren't we spending some federal money to help
Yes.
complete this
So,
project?
yes, so Jay mentioned that 145,000. And so we're going to use, you know, we budgeted that, not only that federal money, but we budgeted more out of our child nutrition fund to complete that cost. And then we're going to take some building fund money to complete it, about 94,000. That's still going to leave us with a building fund of over 2 million and a child nutrition carryover of over 100,000. So we feel like we'll still be in good shape financially in both of those funds and be able to
Much needed.
renovate this cafeteria for our students.
Much needed.
Any more questions or a motion?
Move to approve item 6.4 as presented.
Second.
Slater,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Item 6.5, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve change order number 1 to add Davis-Bacon Act provisions and credit for revisions to the HVAC screen fence for the Alva High School Gymnasium HVAC project.
Can you explain a little bit of that, Randy? Paul?
The job was not originally bid with Davis-Bacon in it. So whenever we come back, I was scared of what was going to happen because I've been involved in a couple of projects. But anyway, the money got to be in. So we come up with an alternative doing away with the masonry fence around the HVAC units and putting a wood fence around it. And fortunately, I was the one that, or Kyler bid the masonry because I couldn't get anybody else to bid it. And so I was able to give all that money back. If I'd had a sub, he probably wouldn't have. You know, legally, they can take part of the profit whenever you sign contract with them. But if you look up here at the top, the Davis-Bacon is an additional $122,244. And we have that broke down on the next sheet. The painting was $1,250. The mechanical, which is dense, is $98,898. The electrical, which is more your electric, is $15,177.29. We kind of went over these numbers with these people, and on mechanical and plumbing and electrical, their wages over double what they're paying when you go prevailing wage. Carpentry and stuff don't do that, but those crafts do. So we kind of verified that that was a legitimate deal. So then what we did was we took the HVAC screen walls out and we added a wood fence back in that we're going to paint to match the brick. And that gave a credit back of $179,659. The fence was 50-some thousand, is that correct? Mm-hmm. And so that come out of the total masonry deduct, which was 200-some thousand. So it's actually a deduct when we do all this of $57,415. By the time I take the masonry out, add the wood fence back in, and the prevailing wage. So it's actually a savings of $57,000.
And just to kind of explain what the Davis-Bacon Act, one of the requirements that the State Department of Education has required us, the federal funding that we've received, they've required us to follow the Davis-Bacon Act, which is federal prevailing wage. So you have to pay the prevailing wage for those trades, which is double the cost to those projects.
If we weren't using lesser money, we wouldn't necessarily have to follow that, but because we do
Correct.
have to follow it. It's a legal obligation, am I correct?
You are correct.
Thank you. Also on the fence, I noticed on the Kyler, they will be placing the above ground fence perimeter with the same width as a mow strip. We talked about that last time. When you weed eat and you get around a
Yeah.
fence, you need a fence very long.
We'll go ahead and put the foundation in like it was designed. If you
Yep.
ever want to put the masonry, we'll extend
Sure.
it up above the ground like
Perfect.
4 inches.
Perfect.
So it's where they can weed eat or
And
mow along it.
that's the problem. A wooden fence, by the time it's.
Well, let me explain this
Into.
wooden fence. We put steel or galvanized post and
Yep.
galvanized angle,
Yep.
and we're bolting it down to the concrete. And that way, the only thing wood on it is the actual fence.
Sure.
And we'll paint it, because I'm not going to tell you in 10, 12, 15
Sure.
years, you don't have to replace the wood
You
fence.
will from a
But the post will be there when we're all dead, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
but you're right.
But so we changed that from the architect's design, because he had 4x4 wood posts in the ground, poured in the concrete 4 foot.
Yep.
And that's really good, but the post rots off the top of the ground. You see them all around town blown over.
That's right.
That's what happens, the post rots at the top of the ground.
You're exactly right.
Yeah, this won't do that. It's all galvanized steel.
Okay, thank you for that.
Additional questions? motion?
Make a motion, we approve change order number 1 to add Davis Bacon for provisioning with the revisions to the HVAC screen fence for the project as presented.
Second.
Slater,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
We've already made the change order out, we'll send it to the architect for his signature
Okay.
and forward this to you. This bottom line on here reflects all the cafeteria, all the HVAC with prevailing wage, with the wood fence, and it takes care of everything, which is $1,662,703. And we'll bid out the drywall and see what we can do on Drayton County to save any money.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you for
Appreciate it
staying
very
around.
much.
We got a long way to go.
Be safe.
Thank you all.
Thank you all very much.
You bet.
Item 6.6, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the revised extra duty assignment schedule.
Okay, if you'll open up the attachment, extra duty assignment attachment, and move to page 5. We have, Megan Spray has been helping with our middle school girls basketball, and so we prorated her extra duty stipend out for the months of October to December. She will now be helping with our high school girls. Megan has done an excellent job, and so we are happy to have her step up in this larger role. We will be opening up an assistant middle school girls basketball position. We also highlighted Jennifer Taylor's because they prorated out of that stipend, and so we wanted to be transparent with the board and show you what we had done there also. So if there are no questions, I would recommend approval of our revised extra duty assignment schedule.
Move to approve the revised extra duty assignment schedule.
Second.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes. Item 6.7, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the Alva School District calendar for the school year 23-24.
We started working on this calendar about a month and a half ago. We had teachers, Mandy Egner, Michelle Mackey, Cecily Franz, Kelly Woods, Mindy White on the committee to provide feedback. We had parents, Edith Wiedmer, Michelle Newton, Brenna Heaton, Brooke Pingleton, and Brooke Meyer, also to provide feedback. We met 2 times, used a Google survey in the development of this. We took 3 different options to our teachers and staff. They voted before we left for spring break, and this was the option chosen by the majority of the staff. I want to also thank Mr. Slater, Mr. Eaton, Mr. Schombacher, Dr. Darrow, and Enid, Dr. Bell, Dr. Hannaford. It takes a lot of collaboration to put a calendar together and make sure that we serve our students and have as close to corresponding dates as we can for our families. And so I feel like this is a really good calendar for our staff. Obviously, our staff this is the one that they would like, and so I would recommend its approval. You can see that beginning school date for 2024 is August 10th, and our last date, or 2023 is August 10th, and our last date is May the 17th. I also want to thank Ms. Martini. When we go through, and Dr. Nicemonger, we go through and start looking at graduation, we try to really schedule a graduation when we don't have conflicts with spring sports or programs, and Ms. Martini works to try to get it close to that high school graduation date so that we're able to accommodate our families. And so a lot of work goes into it by a lot of people, and I appreciate that. And so I would recommend approval of our 23-24 school calendar.
What are the key differences in this calendar next year for the calendar this year?
Honestly, this calendar is the closest to corresponding dates. Some of the other calendars, some of the other options that we looked at, Shane, were not as, and I can show you these, this was our first option that the committee came up with. You can see that our start date's the same, but where things changed were your Christmas. And that was really kind of the crux of the conversation, was how long Christmas break should be and when we start. If you look at option 2, the second option that we gave staff, we were starting a week after. The result of that is the end of the calendar went a little bit further, and you're going to be looking at your graduation near Memorial Day. And folks weren't sure if that was really what they wanted. Again, you can see we were going up to 2 more days before our Christmas break, which meant a shorter break than we had this year. So really, option 3, I had it titled corresponding and took that off because I felt like it kind of planted a seed, but really that's this calendar from to this year. I would say they're pretty identical. Any other questions?
I make a motion that we approve the district calendar for school year 23-24.
Second.
Slater,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Item 6.8, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the approved expenditures for the Alva High School golf activity account number 813 for fiscal year 23.
I want to start with the bottom attachment and open that. If you remember, a few months ago when we met at lunch and presented this, we began working to present the golf budget. We talked to our golf coaches, we talked to administrators and community members on how we could use this money that we're so grateful to get from Dr. Quinn. And so we developed this budget through that collaboration. We then met with the Quinn Trust, and if you'll open up the middle attachment, over the holiday break, thank Mrs. Ritchie also. I don't want to leave her out because she's been a real critical part of this process, to share the budget with them and receive their approval. And I asked for a letter of approval so that we could present to the board that the trust is aware of our planned expenditures. And we received that letter from Ms. McLaughlin. So really want to thank Rita. She's been great to work with. She really believes in the trust and in what Dr. Quinn left for our district. And like I said, has been great to work with. And so then if you'll open up the top attachment, we have made an adjustment to the expenditures. So if you remember each year, fiscal year, we bring the activity account expenditures to the Board of Education for approval, listing the items that may be approved for expenditures. And so this money will be accessed through the activity account for the golf program. And if you look at numbers 39 through 51, those are all of the items that were included on that budget that has been approved by the Quinn Trust for expenditure. We also talked to Ms. McLaughlin about meeting on a yearly basis to review and revise this because, as we all know, costs change and may change when we buy something, and we want to make sure that we're very transparent with her and also with you all with those expenditures. Are there any questions regarding the approved expenditures to the golf account?
Just so I understand, the foundation will take the full distribution from the trust?
Yes, so when we receive this money, the distribution on recommendation from Mr. Carroll, was because of the significant amount of that money and the expectation that it would be difficult to spend that money in the fiscal year, is for them to keep that money. And what we'll do is we'll request it just like we do when we have any kind of our scholarships and our, oh my goodness, what are those? Mini grants, yes. When we request mini grants, it's the same process that we use for that. And so that's how we'll access that money. We'll request it from the foundation, and it will be put into that activity account for purchase.
Just too bad the foundation isn't supporting matching funds right now. And that'd be nice. They did that one time, started at the party, but well, that'd be fabulous. Wow.
Additional questions or a motion?
Motion, we accept the donations of the Quinn family. Very generous donation. Very blessed.
Second.
Did you get Shane's second?
Oh, sorry. I just moved on.
Oh, we all did.
I'm good. Hanson, Kane,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater. Sorry, guys.
That never happens. That's why this is social.
Item 6.9, discussion
Oh,
of
that's
possible
great.
board action, vote to approve the following donations. 6.9.1, $10,000 anonymous donation to the Alva High School NFL account. 6.9.2, $50,000 anonymous donation to the Alva School District.
So want to just reiterate again the generosity of our community. $10,000 anonymous donation to Mr. Broad's speech program is going to make a tremendous impact. I also want to mention the $50,000 donation that we received to the district is from Alva State Bank. Very thankful for their board of directors. We have, after discussion with Mr. Holder, we will be looking at some items for our fine arts, including vocal, our art program, and our band, whether that be helping with instruments, some renovation to some flooring in the vocal room, and some equipment for art. So again, very grateful to that board of directors for believing in our district and believing in our students. And so we will be mindful of that money as we spend it for our students. So I would recommend approval of these donations.
I'll make a motion that we approve 6.91 and 6.92.
Second.
Kane,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Item 7, new business, there wasn't any. Item number 8, signing of documents approved by earlier action. Item number 9,